This
Begin.
conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so let us begin. And good to see all of you here. A little bit of the news for a moment. The UN General Assembly on Wednesday voted 90 to 30 with 47 abstentions to mark the 75th anniversary of the Nakba, the catastrophe, the Palestinian name for the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. Among those voting no were the US, Canada, Australia, UK, Brazil, and most members of the EU. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Gilad Erdan, slammed the vote, asking, "What would you say if the international community celebrated the establishment of your country as a disaster? What a disgrace." Erdogan described the Nakba as the disaster the Palestinians brought upon themselves with their aggression, and I'm adding continued aggression, against Israel. The Palestinians' lies must no longer be accepted in the world stage, just as this body must stop allowing the Palestinians to continue pulling its strings. I urge you all to stop blindly supporting the Palestinians' libels. With that having been said, I thought it might be a good idea for us to focus a little bit on the land of Israel and its role that it plays in Judaism.
Rabbi, just to
Yes.
add to that, they propagate lies all the time, to the extent that I think most people believe it.
Yeah.
That Israel harms little children,
Yeah.
and we do terrible things all the time to everybody,
Yeah.
and the world, for the most part, seems to have accepted this.
Yeah. I think the world, the UN, useless nations, right? For the most part, is it's outnumbered by many of the Arab African nations, which, my opinion, they have a tremendous innate prejudice, and that is why I forget which Israeli thinker or politician had said that Israel has become the Jew amongst the nations. Means whereas you had the Jew who would always be the one who was, he did this and here the ones, now there's Israel. And whereas it's so incredible how you see Roy Sachs writes about how the anti-Semitism keeps morphing into whatever is the worst possible thing for that generation. That is what the Jews in Israel do, right? So when it was religion, then the Jews were the Christ killer. When it was, the politics, so that the Jews were either the communists or the Jews were either the capitalists. And now when it's all about human rights, so the Jews are the worst human rights abusers in the world. It's always that. And whereas we had the protocols of the elders of Zion, that all the Jews who run the world, now what is it? No, it's not the Jews. Now it's the Zionists. It's the Zionists who run the world. So that's
The Jews too. They run Hollywood. They run the banks.
yeah. But mostly it's the Zionists. Yeah.
But by the way, talking about the United Nations, the Israelis have a very casual attitude to this. Famous Abba Evan would say Shmum. Stands for United Nations.
Right.
And he just dismissed it. So they said, we just keep doing whatever we need to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't affect us.
Right.
Really,
So to us, it's more important to stay alive than to have curried the favor of this group. So let's go through. Yes.
Just one more thing, and that is that I think one or two of the countries who have recently made
Abraham Accords.
Made relations with Israel, voted in favor of this noxious thing.
Yeah. And Ukraine, who keeps asking Israel for more and more help, also, I don't know about this vote, but in general, Ukraine also lines up against Israel. So it's a funny world. That was this is on Wednesday. Yesterday. Yeah, this was the Nakba day. Yeah. Okay, so let us go through the connections that we have to the land. You know, the graffiti used to say, Jews go back to Palestine. That's what it said during the early part of the 20th century. Now, of course, the graffiti reads, Jews, get out of Palestine. Right? So sometimes if the world has no place for the Jews, so we just have to kind of say, you know what? We're part of the French, but screw you, and we're going to do what we need to do to stay alive. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's see where it begins, right? And our connection and our claim to the land of Israel goes back all the way to the time of Abraham. Very clearly in Bereshit, Lech Lecha v'yom Hashem al Avram, source number 1, Hashem said to Abraham, Lech Lecha, go forth for your benefit, go to you, may artzecha from your land, may ladatzecha from your birthplace, the house of your father, El haaretz asher areka, to the land that I will show you, ve'escha l'goy gadol, and I'll make you into a great nation, v'avarechecha, I will bless you, v'agadla shemecha, will make your name great, ve'heyei bracha, right? So you say, well, Abraham Accords, so they're all the children of Abraham. Okay, let's go to number 2. The promise to Yitzchak. Hashem appeared to him, to Isaac, to Yitzchak, and said, don't go down to Mitzrayim. Shechon ba'aretz, asher amar lecha. Dwell in the land that I will tell you. Gor ba'aretz azos. Live in this land. I will be with you. I will bless you. Ki lecha ulezarecha. Because to you and to your descendants, etain, I will give, et kol ha'aratzot ha'el, all of these lands, v'akimoti et ha'shvua, and I will establish the oath, the shvua, asher nishbati, that I swore, la'Avraham avicha. Now, actually, it's interesting. In Islam, there are 2 different streams of thought, each based on somewhat conflicting verses in the Quran. And there are many that say very clearly the land of Israel is there for the Jews, right? And there are, I remember hearing that in the great Islamic university in Egypt, so they had a whole big debate over which one would be, and there are actually 2 camps. And the Islamic nations that are looking to, that have, I think Azerbaijan, right, one of the largest Muslim countries, which has relations with Israel and good relations with Israel. So they adopt that approach as opposed to the more politicized anti-Israel approach. You know, I have a copy of the document I'd be happy to share with anybody from the Waqf document, which decades ago, in describing the Temple Mount, said this was the place of the Judaic temple built by King Solomon. There was no question about that. Islam, which sees themselves as religion 2.0, so they have no qualms over building their mosques on top of destroyed churches or destroyed synagogues, because their view is, well, this is the next stage. You know, who still uses floppy disks anymore? Right, so why should anybody still use a church or a synagogue anymore? We've gone on to the, you know, onto much. We've developed past that, right? It was only once it became so politicized, and now they say no, there was never a Jewish temple there. But the Waqf's own papers spoke about that. And then you might say, okay, so Avraham, well, that could include Yishmael. Well, Yitzchak, that rids us of Yishmael, can still include Esav. And then we have source number 3. Vayer Elokim El Yaakov, Hashem appeared to Yaakov. Od Bevo'o, while he was coming in Padan Aram, and Hashem blessed him, Elokim, Shimcha Yaakov, your name Yaakov, Leikar Shimcha Yaakov, King Yisroel Yeshmecha, your name will be Yisroel, Elokim Ani Kal Shakai, Nations will come from you, kings will come out from you, Veta'aretz, and the land. Asher natati la'Avraham, the land that I gave to Avraham, Ula Yitzchak, and to Isaac, Lecha etnena, to you I am giving it, Ula zarecha charecha, and to your children after you, etain et haaretz. I am giving this land. And of course, when we left Egypt, after 40 years in the desert, we go, well, Shemot, Hashem, we're still there in Egypt, verse number 4, Ve'ereid lahotzilo. Hashem said to Moses, I will go down to save him from the hand of Egypt. And to bring him up from that land, El Eretz Tova Urechava, to a land that is good and spacious, El Eretz Zavat Chalav Udavash, a land flowing with milk and honey. And after 40 years in the desert, that is exactly what happened. Outside of the Torah has finished with the death of Moshe. Moshe did not enter the land of Israel. Moshe did not bring us in. But Yoshua, the very first book of prophets, Yoshua, chapter 1, verses 2 to 4, gets right to the point. Moshe avdi mate. Moshe, my servant, has died. V'ata, now kumavarta yarden hazeh, God, arise and cross this Jordan. V'ata, you v'chol ha'am hazeh, you and this whole nation, ela aretz asher nochi notein lahem livnei Yisrael, to the land that I'm giving to the children of Israel. Kol makom asher tidroch kaf raluchem bo lechem netativ, wherever your feet will tread, I am giving it to you. Kasher dibarti el Moshe, as I spoke to Moshe. Me'amidbar v'alvanon hazeh v'anar golden ha'prat, right from the desert, this Lebanon, to the great river, the Euphrates, Mavo Hashem, called Eretz Achitim, V'Yam Gadol, Vo Hashemesh, Yugvulchem. All of that will be your boundaries. Okay, so very clearly, throughout, from beginning to end of Nach, we have very clearly this arrangement, this land that has been given to us. The very first Rashi, well, not the very first Rashi, but Rashi on the very first Pasuk, he asks a question. Those of you who were at Natalie's Rosh Chodesh last night at the house, so she touched upon this. On the Pasuk, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz, Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak said, Rashi brings, Rabbi Yitzchak taught, Lo yatzorech lahatchil et haTorah el mechorz lechem. The Torah, if it's simply a law book, then it would have started with the first mitzvah given to the children of Israel at large, which was Rosh Chodesh. That was the first mitzvah commanded to Israel. Umatam patach b'Bereshit. So why did it, in fact, begin with Bereshit? Rashi brings his answer, Mishum, based on the pasuk in Tehillim, in Psalms, Koach Masav. He gid la'amo, the power of his acts, he told to his people, Latek lahem nachalat goyim, to give them the inherited land of the nations. Shem yom ru'umo ta'olam Yisroel, if the nation of the world will say to Israel, Listim atem, you are occupiers. Shekivashtem, artzot, shiva goyim, you have conquered the land of the 7 nations. Heim omer lam, we say, kol haaretz shel hakadosh baruch hu. All the land belongs to God. Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim et haaretz. In the beginning, God created heavens and earth. It all belongs to God. Hu bara, He created it. V'natan lasher yashar beinav, and He gave it to whoever was yashar, straight, proper, fitting, deserving in His eyes. B'irtzono nitna lahem. It was God's will. It was given to them for the time period that they had it. Uvirtzono natla mehem, and it was His will that He took it from them. V'natna lanu, and He gave it to us. Now, it's important to keep in mind that when you hear people using the term to give it back to the Palestinians, that is a historical inaccuracy, because the Palestinians, it's interesting, in 1948, when the United Nations, or 47, voted on splitting the land, it was between the Jews and the Arabs. The Palestinian, there were no Arabs that identified as Palestinians. There were Arabs who lived in Israel. The Palestinian Post was Jews in Palestine who had the new who were producing newspaper. The Palestinian Philharmonic, right, was not Arabs playing; it was Jews who were playing, right? Actually, the name Palestine is a name that was given at a point when they wanted to take away the Judaic names of the land of Israel. So they gave this name Palestine, and that's why it became Palestine. Yeah, no, before the British. Before the British. The biggest joke is that the Palestinian Arabs don't pronounce the sound of the letter P. Right? It becomes Ba. They're Palestinian. So here they're claiming to be, we are the Palestinian, right? When they can't even pronounce that name. Not to say that there aren't Arabs who have been living in the land for centuries. And there are Jews who've been living in the land for centuries. And that is why the United Nations decided on that split of the land, which we grudgingly accepted, and they did not, and waged war, and joined the other Arab armies that all came pouring in, and they lost the war. Right? Hashem takes it from who he means to have it and gives it to who he means to have it. And I think Israel would be willing to make peace if there was a partner with whom to make peace. But our experience in Gaza is that when we leave and they take over, it doesn't become another Singapore peaceful neighbor, right? But it becomes a missile launch pad at civilian areas. Okay, so that is the Rashi. He took it from those who he wants to take it from and gives it. And we had it for different times, and we lost it when we were not worthy. We entered the Israel with Yoshua. We were there for 408. We were there for 480 years, I believe, until the temple was the first Beit HaMikdash was built, which stood for 410 years, and then it was destroyed. We were not worthy, and you learn through the Nevi'im Acharonim, certainly Yeshayahu, Yirmiyahu, Yecheskel, Trei Asar, and they are crying out to the people to act in a righteous manner and be able to remain in the land, right? And if we're not worthy, we were sent into exile. We returned after 70 years. We're there for 420 years. And then once again, we were sent into exile. And now we're still in exile, even though we do have the land of Israel. But we don't have a Beit HaMikdash. We don't have Mashiach. It is still exile. But at this point, this is tremendous strides that we have taken, that Hashem has granted us, I should say, towards the ultimate return. The Navi Yoel, I mentioned Trei Asar, right? Did I skip? No, that's right. Good. Number 7, Trei Asar is often referred to as the minor prophets. They are not minor in any way. They are shorter prophets, right? Yeshayahu is about 56 or 60 prakim, and Yecheskel was 48. Yirmiyahu was also 40 something, or maybe 51 or 2. I'm not sure, right? And then you have these prophets. Some of them, Avadia is a single perek, right? The first of it is Hosea, I think it's 13 or 14 prakim. They're much smaller, so they were therefore all combined into one book, so they should not become lost. But they are not minor in any way, shape, or form. The Navi Yoel says, "V'kibatzti et kol hagoyim, v'horaditim el emek Yehoshaphat, v'nishbatati imam sham alami v'nachlati Yisroel, asher pazru b'goyim v'et artzi chalku." I'll gather the nations, bring them down to the valley of Yehoshaphat. I'll contend with them there concerning my people, my possessions, Israel. that they dispersed among the nations, and they divided up my land. So very, very clear, this land was given to us. Let's look at, and this is going to take us 2 weeks. We'll spend this Thursday and next Thursday on this topic. What are those unique physical qualities of the land? So on page 2 of the notes, Roman numeral 2, source number 8. Ki Hashem Elokecha, from Devarim, Moshe speaking, for the Lord your God is bringing you to a good land. Eretz Tova, Eretz Nachle Mayim, Vayonot Utomot Yotzim, Babika Ubahar, streams of water, springs, underground water coming forth in the valley and the mountains. Eretz Chita Usara, V'Gevin V'Teina V'Rimon, Eretz Zeit Shemen Udavash. These are the seven types that the land of Israel is praised through. A land of wheat, barley, grape, fig, pomegranate, olives, and oiled olives, and date honey. Right? When we talk about flowing with milk and honey, we're not talking about our friends the bees making the honey. We're talking about date honey. And if you get the really good dates, especially when you're in Israel, they're literally oozing with their juice and their sweetness. Yeah. And there's a company called Silan that makes this delicious, just 100% pure date honey. Yeah. Natalie uses that for some of the cooking, and it's fantastic. You will not eat bread there in any poverty. Lo techsar kolba. Nothing will be lacking. Eretz Sharvanel barzel. Stones are like iron. The mounds you mine copper. V'achalta v'savata uveirachta. This is the Torah's blessing. The explicit Torah level blessing is birkat hamazon, the blessing, the bracha we say after we finish eating. V'achalta, you shall eat. V'savata, become sated. Uveirachta, and you will bless as Hashem Elokecha ala aretz hatova asher natan lach, on this wonderful land that he has given to you. Every time we bench, we say birkat hamazon, we are mentioning and thanking God for the land that he gave us. The first bracha is birkat hazan, the blessing of the food. The next one is birkat haaretz, the blessing of the land. What is this? Zavat chalav udvash. So the Gemara, the Babylonian Talmud, speaks about it. Tells us, Rami Yechezkel Ikla, he visited Lebnei Brak. The Chazinu Lahanu Izi saw goats eating under the fig trees. Honey was dripping from the figs. Milk was flowing from the goats. Interesting, it's the figs, not the dates. And they mixed together. And he exclaimed, Hainu, Zavat chalav udavash. We see it. It is literally flowing with this mixture of milk and honey. Going much further to Roman times, we have Josephus, who was a great historian, and he writes there, for the whole area is excellent for crops or pasturage, rich in trees of every kind, so that by its fertility it invites even those least inclined to work on the land. In fact, every inch of it has been cultivated by the inhabitants, and not a parcel goes to waste. It is thickly covered with towns. Thanks to the natural abundance of the soil, and the many villages are so densely populated that the smallest of them has more than 15,000 inhabitants, which is fascinating. That's how Josephus describes the lushness of the land of Israel. We all know about Mark Twain's description in the 1800s of how barren and empty it is, that even, what are those balls of, what are they called?
Tumbleweeds.
Even the tumbleweeds seem lonely over there. That's how barren and forsaken is this land. And the Maharsha, source number 11, it explains as follows. As long as Israel does not dwell on its land, the land does not give her fruits as she is accustomed. When she will begin to reflourish, however, and give of her fruits, this is the clear sign that the end, the time of redemption, is approaching, when all of Israel will return to their land. That's actually based on a pasuk that when you leave, it'll be desolate. And that actually is a bracha, is a blessing. That other nations will not settle there and be prosperous there. In fact, it was always the backyard of other nations. Right? The Turks were there for 400 years, from 1517 till 1917. The Turks were there, right? And the Great Turkish Railroad. So what do? The JNF is planting all of these trees, trying to reforest the land. Why is that? Because they just chopped down the trees and used it to ship over to where they needed it, to build their railroads, to build what they wanted to build, right? And the land was not treated the way it meant to be treated. The land did not reciprocate. And the land, as Twain described it, was super barren. Now we have the incredible fulfillment of these prophecies that the desert has sprouted. And that was not just, on its own. It took tremendous hard work. Now that I moved to Israel, that was in 1983. Our neighbors were the Shvimers, Aleim Hashalom, Gveret and Adon Shvimer, who were both Holocaust survivors. He lost his young family there. She was a younger woman, did not have a family. They met afterwards, they married, they came to Israel, and she'd always say to me, Adon Yisrael, Aliyah Shelcha, Lo Kamo Aliyah Shelanu. She said, no, Adon Yisrael, right, Mr. Yisrael, your Aliyah is not like our Aliyah, right? We got tax subsidies on buying a car, on all of our appliances. We got rent subsidies. Our whopping $150 a month rent was subsidized to the tune of $140 a month. So rent was $10, right? Pretty reasonable. I was telling another group a couple of days ago. I was earning a whopping $550 a month and living large. You figure it out. Rent's $10. Okay. Health insurance was, I made Aliyah, was free for the first 6 months. Then I had to start paying a full $30 a month. Okay. And then, how many utilities did Natalie and I have? No kids yet, right? And how much gas and electricity and water did we have? How much were we eating? We were living large. Right? For she said, Aliyah shelachem lo kum aliyah shelanu. Right? Her aliyah, literally they were draining the swamps and cultivating the land and building up the land.
Good. No, you don't know anything.
Interesting Rashi in Devarim, right? Rashi in Devarim, we have the concept that Eretz Yisrael is Gavoa Mikol Ha'aratzot. The land of Israel is higher than all of the other nations, right? So who needs Everest, right? So what does that mean? What does that mean that it's higher than all of the other nations? Let's see that Rashi first. Vayichubi Adam mipriya aretz vayurdu eleinu. The spies took the fruit of the land of Israel, vayurdu eleinu, and they brought it down to us. Rashi says, we see from here they brought it down from the land of Israel, which teaches us the land of Israel is higher than all of the other lands. How is that meant to be understood? Some different approaches to that. Number 13, we have the Maharsha in Kedushin. He says, takes it somewhat literally. The Maharshal comes on the following statement in the Gemara: the temple is higher than the land of Israel. The land of Israel higher than all the lands. He says the earth is a sphere like an apple. The location of the temple is at the center, focus of the earth. So to the land of Israel, both are viewed as being at the top of the sphere. Therefore, traveling anywhere to the land of Israel is viewed as an ascent. So we say the highest point, we're not looking at a topographical map and saying, oh, well, which pimple on this land, which mountain on this land is the tallest one. We're saying this is a sphere. So when it was created, what was the top? What was considered to be foremost? That was the land of Israel. Therefore, traveling anywhere to the land of Israel is viewed as an ascent, right? If you have a sphere, right? So whichever point is considered the top of that, so then everything else is working its way up to that. The Maharal, in very typical Maharal fashion. So the Maharal has a slightly different approach to this, and he comments on a statement in the Gemara: the land of Israel is higher than all the lands, temple higher than the lands of Israel. The same Gemara as the Maharsha. The reason is because the land of Israel is more kadosh, more holy than all the other lands, and the temple is more holy than the rest of the land of Israel. That which is holy is referred to as gavoha, up high, that which is above, and that which is more gashmi chomri, that is what's considered as below. So we're not talking, he says, in a physical sense, we're talking about a spiritual sense. The more spiritual is higher, the more chomri is lower. Therefore, even if it is true that the earth is like a sphere, but the sphere appears the same from both sides, therefore it is possible to arbitrarily assume that any point on the sphere is the highest point. In other words, why should we assume that the land of Israel is the highest point of the sphere? Nevertheless, one should assume that the top of the sphere is the land of Israel, since its level of kedusha, of holiness, is gavoha, is higher than the rest of the world. Therefore, when one travels the land of Israel, one refers to it as ascending. Even in our modern jargon, we say a person is moving to Israel. What does he do? He makes aliyah. He ascends. And it is a further ascent when one travels to the temple. Of course, we're all familiar that when we're davening from anywhere in the world, we say, oh, you have to face east because we're a bunch of Americans. And when you're in the United States, east is the way that you face Israel, right? But the Babylonian Talmud, when it talks about those in Israel, they say b'ma'arava, those to the west, right? So if you're in Iraq, Iran, and you're davening, there you would face towards the west. When I visited my son a few weeks ago in Herzliya, I foolishly took out my iPhone to get my compass when I needed to daven to see which way was east. And he said, Dad, you're not in Kansas anymore, right? It's not a matter of facing east, right? He's in Herzliya. You've got to face southeast in order to face Jerusalem. If you're in Jerusalem, then you're facing towards the Beit HaMikdash, towards the Temple Mount, right? When I was there on the trip, so we davened, we had Shalosh and davened Marav at a beautiful home in the old city that literally overlooks the Temple Mount. And as we davened Marav, the big joke was, which way should we face, right? And it was kind of apparent, right? So you have the higher kedusha of the holiness of the land of Israel and the higher kedusha of the Beit HaMikdash area. Let's go to number 3, the purpose of the land of Israel. Okay, so we have been longing to return to the land of Israel. We've been davening towards Israel for thousands of years. And in our benching again in Birkat HaMazon, grace after meals, Uvenei Yerushalayim Ira Kodesh, right? In our Amidah, Yerushalayim Ircha Barachamim Tashuv, about Jerusalem, about the redemption. Why? What is it that we want so much? Right? Shawarma? All right, we like shawarma. But what is it that makes us long to return to the land of Israel? Let's look at number 3, the purpose of the land of Israel. Devarim in 6 and 12, the et ha-mitzvah, ha-chukim, va-mishpatim, the commandment, the decrees, the chukim, the ordinances, the decrees that the Lord Hashem, your God, commanded, la'med etchem, to teach you, la'asot, to do, ba'aretz, to do where? In the land. Asher atem ovrim shama lirishta. The land that you are going there to possess, to inherit. And then again, Parak Yud Bet for chapter 12. Elah chukim ha-mishpatim asher tishmun la'asot. These are the chukim, the mishpatim, the laws, the decrees, the ordinances, the judgments, asher tishmun la'asot, that you should guard to do ba'aretz. Whoa. Where should you do them? In the land. That Hashem your God is giving to you to inherit. Kol hayamim, all the days, asher atem chayim al ha'adamah. All the time that you will be living where? On the land. So, do we not keep mitzvot outside the land of Israel? Other psukim say about Shabbat, b'chol moshvotechem, wherever you are settled. So we know we have the mitzvot hatzluyot ba'aretz, those mitzvot that are dependent on the land, meaning things that grow from the ground, tithing, truma, maaser, arla, all these things. So that is dependent, and certainly those which are connected to the Beit HaMikdash. But all other mitzvot that are not connected to the land, if they're not fuliyot ba'aretz, they're no agot, they apply ba'aretz uba chutz la'aretz. So how do we understand these psukim? So famous Ramban, source number 16, the Ramban explains as follows, and he says this concept. The sages stated in the Sifri, source number 16, if your hearts lead you astray and you serve and bow to other gods, you will quickly be banished from the good land that God gives you. Right? That's what we discussed before, and when we discussed that very first, that Rashi on the first passing in Bereshit. Hashem gives it to whoever is supposed to be there. If we make ourselves worthy, then that's us. Right? If we're not worthy, then we were sent out numerous times. Even though I, Hashem, am exiling you from the land of Israel, you should still perform mitzvot so that when you return, they will not be new and unfamiliar to you. An analogy, a man is upset with his wife and sends her to her father's house. He says to her, keep wearing your jewelry so that when you will return, it will not be new and unfamiliar to you. Okay? So the highest level of the fulfillment of all of the mitzvot, not just those that are particular to the land of Israel, the highest level of fulfillment of all the mitzvot is in the land of Israel. But of course, we still observe the mitzvot wherever we are. The mitzvah of living land of Israel, is that only when there's a Beit HaMikdash standing? Ramban numbers this mitzvah among the 613 mitzvot from the pasuk, v'yirishtem ota v'shaftem ba. You will inherit it, you will dwell upon it. He further states it is equal in gravity to all of the mitzvot. As the Sifri states, even if the Trumat Deshen in his rulings lauded this mitzvah, and this is the truth as the Nesivos HaMishpah has also affirmed, therefore all times are equal concerning this mitzvah, and it applies even during times of exile. So there still is a mitzvah of living land of Israel, even during time of exile, when we're not going to be there as a national entity. As he quoted, as the Piskei Teshuva 17 quoted, here is the Sifri quoted, Yeshivat Eretz Yisrael, Shkula Keneged Kol HaMitzvot Shebetorah. You possess the land, you'll set on it, and to fulfill all the decrees and the laws that I present before you today. So the pasuk puts together this mitzvah of being in Israel with all the mitzvot I'm commanding you today. So we see that there is this this connection of Yeshivat Eretz Yisrael, settling the land of Israel, and all of the mitzvot. The Gemara, the Babylonian Talmud, says, Kol mahalech arba amot be'eretz Yisrael, muftach lo shehu ben olam haba. Anyone who walks 4 amot, between 6 and 8 feet, in the land of Israel, muftach lo, is guaranteed that that person has to be in the world to come. However, we cannot think that that is, right, all that we are about. Let's see the Sifsei Chaim, or Chaim Freelander. We'll go right to the English. The purpose of leaving Egypt was to receive the Torah. We receive the land of Israel as an instrument or a means with which to fulfill the Torah. We have no other purpose in living in the land of Israel apart from this. This is an important concept, right? The question is often asked, right? Where was Mount Sinai? Right? Right? It was out in the, hello Margot, good to have you aboard, right? Mount Sinai was out of the land of Israel, right? So why would God do that? Why would the Torah be given to us outside the land of Israel, right? Mount Sinai is somewhere in the Sinai Peninsula, right? The Sinai Desert. We think we know where it is. We're not sure where it is, right? It was Egyptian territory. 1967, it became Israeli territory as part of the Camp David Accords. So it was returned to the Egyptians, and we've had a very cold, unfriendly, but we've had peace without there being wars along that border, without soldiers being killed along that border now for, what was that, 82?
73.
No, the Yom Kippur War was 73.
77.
Right? It wasn't right after it wasn't immediately after Yom Kippur War.
No, but when this killing of Israeli soldiers stopped,
Well, there was still skirmishes along the borders until there was a peace treaty.
Okay, you're talking about then when we gave Gaza to the Palestinians.
Yeah, I think Carter. Yeah. Late 70s, I thought it was, yeah.
Well, that was, oh, you mean?
No. Because I was in Israel and I took part of a Sinai trip, right, as part of the Jewish agency tours that we would do during our Sukkot and Pesach vacations. And during my first year, that was 1980, we still had Sinai. So I believe it was 81 or 82 or 83 when we had the Camp David Accords.
Because then Reagan was in power and I don't.
Camp David Accords were 1979. There was a 3-phase removal.
Right.
Oh, okay.
1979.
79, okay, and we were not yet out of there when I went on my trip.
He came to Israel in 1977. This is when Sadat landed in Lod. Yes, November 1977.
77 is when Sadat came to the Knesset.
The treaty was signed March 79.
Okay, good. But Israel still had it because I was there. I was there before March 79. No, I was there in 80. Okay.
It happened in March.
Yeah. Okay. So, but the Mount Sinai is outside the land of Israel because we have to know that the Torah is with us whether we have the land of Israel or not. We have no other, the Jewish people do not receive the land of Israel in the same way that other nations need a piece of land to ensure their physical survival. The Jewish people were born in the desert after leaving Egypt, received the Torah there, and were taken from there as a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. We did not become a nation by settling together in the land of Israel. Rather, on the contrary, through our being a unified nation, we received the Torah, right? It's not the land that unified us. It was our being unified nation. That's why we received the Torah. Famously, the verse says, "Vayichan Yisroel neged Ahar." It says that in the singular, he camped by the foot of the mountain, not vayachanu in the plural, vayichan in the singular, ki ish echad b'leiv echad, like one person with one heart. Just 1 second. We remained in the desert for 40 years, eating manna, and only after this did we receive an additional instrument with which to fulfill the Torah, which was the land of Israel. Yes.
I thought that part of the Israelites getting the Torah in Sinai is to get prepared spiritually for the entrance to Israel, not to enter like a bunch of tribes, but already be a nation that knows the rules, that has the mitzvot.
Okay, I hear that, Leah. But the fact that I hear that, I don't think one precludes the other. The fact that it was given to us outside the land of Israel is that the Torah exists wherever we are, right? And it's not limited only to the land of Israel. So that is one aspect of the land of Israel. And let's pause here, and you could either take home your source sheets or leave it here, and I'll have it for us next time. And we'll pick up and finish up next week on more aspects of the land of Israel, the purpose in terms of the mitzvot, right? In terms of Torah study, the spirituality, how one could best recognize God in Israel, and hashgacha pratit, the divine intervention that takes place in Israel, prophecy in the land of Israel, and finally the promise of the return, the ultimate return from exile back to the land of Israel. That we will pick up next week, everybody. Okay. Yasher koach, everybody. Let me go back here. Can never find these cursors. They shouldn't make it this little black. They should make it like pulsating purple, right?
Yep.
Pulsating purple. That's what the cursor should be. What do you think, Eileen? A good color to pick? Okay, we'll call it over here, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're very welcome.